Okay, now before we talk about how your fingers move in detail, what we want to do is find a nice, comfortable place for them to play from. So let's go ahead and put together all those things we've learned about our piano playing body so far, right? Nice balanced head and torso. And your shoulders, right? Just let them go. Let them go. And C-3PO arms. And your hands in a nice free but ready to play position, right? And all this, remember, is not rigid. All this is very much free and alive. Now, while we're doing this, and without even trying to do anything with your fingers, just notice where your fingers naturally wind up. Now, if we're doing this right, what you're going to notice is that your fingers are going to follow a very natural curvature. Right? They're not going to stick out straight. They're not going to be cramped up. They're just going to follow a nice, free, and easy and natural curvature, and you're not even going to have to try to put it there. That's a key point, right? And that's awesome. So just yield to this natural tendency, and you're going to do fine at the piano. Now, from this natural place, let's take a close look at how our fingers move in the vertical direction. Let's start with a hand that's nice and free, but poised and ready to play, just like we learned before. And let's make sure that our fingers are in this nice, naturally curved position, right? We don't want them all stretched out or all scrunched together. Just nice and free and natural and poised to play the piano. So now, from this naturally curved starting point, let's go ahead and take a look one by one at how each of our fingers move, and let's start with our thumb. So let's go ahead and just move our thumb down very slowly and gently. Then return. All right, let's do that again. Down. Return. Now let's notice a couple of things about this, right? First thing is, notice that the motion does not occur from this big knuckle here. It really occurs from back here at the wrist, right? Let's take another look. All right? Very important. The other thing to notice is that your thumb really doesn't have to try to come back, right? It just kind of naturally wants to be there. So pretty much we just have to really not so much make it return as we just kind of let it return to its own natural starting point, right? Now let's try the same thing with our other four fingers, shall we? Now, when we do this, we want to make sure we don't do this with straight fingers, right? Or curled up fingers. What we want to do is just move them from the big knuckles and try and kind of maintain this natural curvature as best we can. So let's go ahead and take our index finger and move it down. All right. And then return. Now the key point here is we want to be able to move each one of these fingers independently, right? Not all at the same time. So let's go ahead and now move our middle finger, again, independently of all the others. And you may notice this takes a little bit of concentration to do, and that's okay. You know, with a little time, you're going to be able to isolate these pretty reasonably well. And let's go ahead and move our ring finger down and return, and then finish off with the pinky. Move the pinky down and return. So again, this might take a little bit of concentration, but with practice, you're going to get pretty darn good at this. So don't be too hard on yourself in the short term here. Now, let's notice something else. Notice that it doesn't feel quite as natural to move your thumb down, right, compared to your other fingers. And let's kind of highlight that. Let's take our index finger, let's move it down and return. Now let's do the same thing with our thumb. Down and return. Right? So again, not quite as natural to move our thumb down as it is to move our other four fingers. And just store that in your memory banks for now, right? It's going to be very important when we go to the piano later on in the video. Now let's take a look at how each of our fingers moves in the upward direction, shall we? So again, let's make sure we have a nice starting point here with our hands free but poised and ready to play, right? And again, with naturally curved fingers, right? And let's go ahead and start with our thumb. So let's just go ahead and lift. And again, this motion does not occur from this knuckle. It occurs from way back here at the wrist, right? and return. Let's do it again. Lift and return. And you notice we don't have to work very hard. Right? Our thumb just kind of naturally wants to fall back into that position. That's great. So let's go ahead and let's try the same thing with the other 4 fingers. So let's go to our index finger. And again, motion mostly from the big knuckle here and maintaining this natural curvature. Right? We don't want to be lifting like this. We want to maintain this natural curvature and lift from the big knuckle. So let's go ahead and lift index finger. All right. Return. Now middle finger. And return. Now ring finger. Yeah. Right, you're probably experiencing what I'm experiencing. This one feels darn near impossible, doesn't it? Now do the best you can. Return. And then pinky. Return. So you might have noticed that lifting up of our fingers just doesn't quite feel as natural as moving them down, does it? In fact, let's just isolate one of these guys and try it out. Let's take our ring finger again, since it's such a problem child, right? So let's go ahead and take our ring finger and let's move it down first. All right, and then return. Not so bad, right? Now let's go ahead and lift it up. Again, feels darn near impossible, right? So the lesson is this. Notice that lifting up of our fingers just doesn't feel as natural as pushing them down, right? And this is great that we've discovered this, because this realization is going to pay enormous dividends when we take our piano playing body to the piano later on in the video. We need to talk about one more way, and by the way, a very subtle way, that your fingers can move vertically. Right? And that is by an expansion of your entire hand. And this expansion really is kind of like what you would have to do if you were going to palm a basketball. Okay? Now let's try it, right? Again, make sure our hand is in a nice free but poised to play position, right? Start with naturally curved fingers. And let's go ahead and expand as if we're going to palm a basketball. And notice that as we do this, right, your fingers tend to flatten out and your fingertips lift up. Right? And another thing to pay very special attention to is notice when we do this motion that our fingers really are not acting like independent units here. They're really acting more like an extension of your hand. That's a really important insight to have here when we talk about our technique, right? Now let's go ahead and take this to an extreme, right? As if we're shooting lightning bolts out of our fingertips. So let's go ahead and just let it really expand to the point of just stretching it out to an extreme, right? Now you realize this does not feel good, right? And the good news here, of course, is that you never have to get into this position, right? Occasionally, some of the music is going to require us to expand our hand and flatten our naturally curved fingers out somewhat, but we only have to do that gently, right? We never have to take it to an extreme. There's never ever a need to take this to the point of discomfort. So always think easy, think gentle, right? Now we're going to talk about this motion a little bit more when we talk about how your fingers move in the horizontal direction, which is exactly what we're going to do next.